Earn your BCom with a business degree program that gives you the time to decide and the time to specialize. Our programs range from fashion to finance, management to marketing, or human resources to healthcare. Take 2 years to decide which career is right for you, and then get down to business with work-integrated learning experiences that give you the employability skills employers value and reward. Apply now at humber.ca/business.
Blog Talk Radio.
welcome to Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio. I'm your host, Jason Pepper, and on this cool evening here in Toronto, Canada, I thought I'd put on a nice little warming sort of song, Moments in Time remix. It's probably one of my favorite remixes that I heard in a while. Hope everyone's having a great night. Tonight we have a spectacular show with an incredible guest. She's a UFO, paranormal, and spiritual author, Heidi Hollis, and she'll be joining us in just a bit. Before she gets on board, I'd like to say a big hello to everybody that's in the chat room. Thank you for joining me tonight. And all the new members of the Facebook group. Glad that you're a part of the group. And on Now Public, I wrote an article, and I'm not going to get into too much detail of what it's about, but basically it's pretty disturbing. And if you can Google the name Hollie Greig, HOLLIE GREIGS, it's a case out of Scotland, and it's been pretty much silenced, and I think this is one of those cases that needs to be told, and told over and over and over again. So I'll put the link up in the chat room for those that are there, and for everybody else, please look into this case. It's pretty disturbing, as I said. But I can't wait to talk to Heidi. I've actually been bothering her for God knows how long now, since I first started doing this radio show stuff. I probably asked her like 10 times to be a guest, and I finally convinced her. And without further ado, I'm going to bring her in now because it's been such a build-up to speak to her. Hello, Heidi. Are you there?
Yes, I am. How are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
I'm excellent.
Good to have you with us, and I'm so honored to finally speak to you. And I was just mentioning on air how I've been sort of pestering you since I've begun my radio endeavor to be a guest. And I do have to say that my persistence has paid off, and I am so excited to have this chat with you tonight.
Oh, and I apologize for not doing it sooner. It's sometimes I get so many emails and stuff, it's hard to get to them all, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I've got to get back to that guy.
Oh, yeah, no, I can imagine, because you are super busy. I mean, you've had such a storied career up until this point as well. I mean, right from the get-go, you had radio shows, articles, a whole bunch of things, and I wanted to find out, was there personal experiences that drove you to pursue this as passionately as you have?
Oh, God, yeah. Actually, it started off when I was a kid and having experienced essentially a haunted house growing up. So
right.
that scared me into, believing a lot of things and, almost wishing that it wasn't happening, of course, and then kind of going towards the alien topic because I had seen a couple of tremendous sightings when I lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and having gone from that to shadow people. So and holy encounters and all this other stuff. So it's like it's kind of a domino effect. It's like going from ghosts to aliens to shadow people. People like, how on earth did that happen? And I'm like, I wondered too how that happened. But yeah, lots of experiences in each of the areas that I write about and research. So.
And which is your favorite topic? Is it one that scares you the most, or one that intrigues you the most?
That's a really good question because I'm a little bit torn, and it's funny how I'm very anxious to help shed the light on some of these more spooky topics as far as shadow people and aliens are concerned, the negative aliens, and but I also really, really enjoy talking about Jesus encounters and angel encounters too, because it's still bringing in the light, of course, and it's like enlightening others about the darker things and kind of bringing them over to more positive things. So I guess out of all my books, I think I find it a lot more fun talking on my Jesus is No Joke book because, it was some tremendous experiences that I personally had that, and I was a skeptic of encounters with Jesus, and lo and behold, for somebody who's seen a lot of weird things in their life and then to see, something that they totally poo-pooed themselves, and then to get that, come towards me, I mean, just totally flabbergasted me. And changed me, changed my life.
That's for sure, and because I read your bio, and I know you experienced the Jesus sighting 4 times. Were they about the same length in duration every time, or was it varied on the message that he had to tell you?
It seemed to be. It's not like I was given any grand revealing answers to reveal to the world. Like as a prophet or something. I think what really hit me was how real he was and is, and how active he is. And I almost put it in my first book, The Secret War, discussing how I truly felt that people claim to see things that they just kind of place a label to it. And, I had seen angelic beings before, and I just thought, when people saying, oh, I see Jesus in a bowl of soup and a tree trunk, I'm like, wow, they're really they're really stretching there. And then for me to, go there and have experienced what I did, I just kind of blew me away, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
but,
and you made a great point, too, a personal point, that when you did cross over, not fully, but you did combine the 2 worlds of paranormal and the spiritual together. You said that there was a bit of a backlash. Do you still encounter that today, or is it a gradual shift to acceptance?
I really didn't have much of a backlash as far as my going from writing the book on aliens and shadow people and the conflict between the different types of alien interactions that are happening. I had questions, sent my way where it was like, how on earth did you go and and have the nerve more, like, how'd you have the guts to go into that subject? So it's been really quite positive and really surprisingly. And to be honest, I tell people I didn't feel like I was going to ever hold that back. I wasn't going to say, for crying out loud, because of somebody else's opinion, I'm not going to tell the truth. That was never in question for myself. So, but believe it or not, I went to a UFO conference, and I didn't plan on speaking at the conference, but they had some open slots, and people came up to me, and I probably about a dozen or more people are like, are you going to speak this year? And I'm like, no. My newest book is on, Jesus encounters. I'm at a UFO conference, and people picked up the book, and they're like, oh, then you really got to talk about this here. And I'm like, are you kidding me? And then I had 6 people pull me to the side and tell me their personal encounters. And I'm at a UFO conference, and I said, okay, I guess I better go up there and speak. And, here I had this opportunity to present on my personal encounters with Jesus and at a UFO conference, and I didn't get 1 ounce of any static from anyone. So it was really, really nice to see and uplifting. And, I'm not a preacher or anything, and I don't, go to church regularly or anything like that. I just keep it real with what I present and hope that others can relate,
That's a great point. And when you do get inspired for a book, do you look more to your spirituality now, or do you base it on facts and research? Like, what drives you to put a book together?
Putting the truth out there and relating to other people, hoping that it helps in some form, and to really let people know that they're not alone in what they're experiencing. To say that I go only towards the spiritual angle, I don't necessarily aim to do that. It always seems to kind of angle a little bit that direction, and it seems to happen naturally because it's the facts are coming forward that these aliens and what it is they're capable of doing to individuals. It does have a soul connection. There's been reports of people that have had, that have been abductees by aliens, and they just so happen to, at some point in their life, also have a near-death experience. And, you've heard of the stories where people are looking down their tunnel and they see a light at the end of the tunnel. And for these people that have had alien encounters all their lives, they see aliens at the end of their tunnel. So how is that possible if these things do not have some kind of connection to that? So I think it's important for people to realize these things are not just a creatures flying around in a tin can. They've got access to things, and they have deeper ties than people really realize.
That's right. And for your shadow people research, you said you had a personal experience with that. How did that happen?
Oh, boy. Well, the first encounter that I had with those guys, I mean, I had seen UFOs, and I thought, this is interesting and whatnot. But I was living down in Iowa for a brief amount of time and staying at a friend's home down there with her family. And one afternoon, it was broad daylight, we had to go to walk to her uncle's house, and we're walking through this, trail, this, park. And I thought I saw something in the corner of my eye, moving from a bush to a tree, and I'm like, no way, what's going on? My friend keeps on walking ahead, and I'm just like, oh, okay, and I keep walking, and I'm catching this thing, and we reach our destination. I'm not going to say anything to my friend, I decided, and then when we had to return back to her house, this thing followed. And by the end of this walk, I was just really like, oh, my God, I have got to tell her, and reach our destination. And I told my friend, I said, look, I don't know what I just saw and what I've been seeing this whole walk. And I said, give me a piece of paper. I have to draw what it is that I've seen. And I'm thinking, my friend's going to look at this drawing and totally be like, give me a break. You're crazy. And instead, she picks up the paper, looks at it, and goes, and what I drew was what I call the head and shoulders shadow being. And it's this big bulking creature that looks like its head is directly connected to its shoulders. And she picks it up, but she looks at it, and she goes, oh, that thing. I don't know what it is. It's been following me my whole life.
Wow.
Yeah, and she goes, hey, Dad, check this out. Heidi saw it, too. And he's like, oh, really? She saw that big, shadow thing. And I'm like, I'm in the Twilight Zone, what the heck? And it was just the craziest thing. And it was a few good years later that I experienced them again on a whole other level that inspired me to write my first book while I was in the middle of college. But and I guess to go in a little bit detail with that, I had seen a very, very large UFO downtown Milwaukee where I lived, and decided, okay, this would be cool to join a UFO group, I heard of. And I go and I join the group and whatnot, and probably a couple of weeks later or so, I lived alone, and I woke up to sounds in my apartment. And I thought, somebody broke in, and I'm like, totally on adrenaline, and I'm like jumping up and looking around. I'm like, okay, what's going on here? And I saw these things like straight out of a movie, two little gray aliens going through my bookshelf and picking things up. And I'm like, get out of Dodge. I've seen these things in movies, and the group that I joined, most of the people, they were abductees and whatnot. And I'm like, one of their little friends must have followed me home. I couldn't understand. And I just, still on adrenaline rush. I went up to these things, and I grabbed my items out of their hands, and I'm like, put that down, give me this, and I'm snatching it out of their hands. And, so many people say that these grays don't show any kind of expression, but I can attest to the fact that they had instead of a slit for their mouth, they had a little hole for their mouth. And so I was like, oh crap, she's awake.
Yeah.
And
oh no.
Yeah, exactly. And I guess to make a long story short, there were like a total of 8 or 9 of them in my apartment. I heard a noise in my walk-in closet. I look in there. There's 2 of them rummaging through my stuff. They freeze and look at me like, oh, no. And 2 more in my kitchen, going through my cabinets. And I kid you not, the bathroom light was on with the door closed. And I'm like, don't even tell me. I go to the bathroom, and I open the door. And as I fling the door open, there was a gray alien that was behind the door, and it knocked him to the floor when I swung the door open. And I saw the one on the floor, and I kind of walked past him, and I went to this other one that was reaching for something I had on the back of the toilet, and I picked it up. Because they weren't answering me. You know, I'm not a person that has a bad temper or anything like that, but I picked it up, and I'm shaking it with every word. I'm like, who are you, and what are you doing in my apartment, you know? Yeah, and this one was different from the others, though, and it really didn't dawn on me so much when I went and grabbed it. It had little suspenders, and I kind of grabbed it by its suspenders and was rattling it. And this one in my hands, it was what they call an alien hybrid. It was half human, half alien. It had a very large head. It had freckles, believe it or not, and a little tuft of curly red hair on its head, and big blue eyes. And the one that had fallen to the floor, you know, as I asked that question, he goes to answer me, and he's got his arms up like, I didn't know if he thought I was going to step on him or something, but I wasn't. But he said, I'm your nephew. I'm your nephew. And I kid you not, I looked at this thing, and it took my attention away from the one in my hands, and it literally shape-shifted into my nephew in a baby blue suit and a big afro. And I'm like, you're not my nephew. You look like him when he was 10. He's, 20-something now, And I put my attention back to the one in my hands, and this one started shaking so violently. It was so terrified. I felt like I had just terrorized a kid, and I set it back down and tried to calm it. But I guess to make a long story short, still, those guys eventually they left, and it probably was, I don't know, a couple days or so, and I started seeing this presence in my apartment, and they were, lo and behold, the big shadowy guys that I'd seen in Iowa. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. I get rid of these, these little bitty creatures out of my apartment, and only to be met with this menacing presence. And they were angry. They had this feeling of dislike, and there was another part to what happened in Iowa where that same one confronted me, and I forgot to mention that, but they had. It's like to be in the presence of one of these guys. It feels very much like they want to rip your throat out if they could. And
what do you think they are? Because some people feel they're spirits. Others feel that they're, a branch of an alien species. In your personal opinion, what do you feel that they might be?
Well, it took some time for me to come to the conclusions that I had after dealing with them for some time. I had encounters with another type of alien being along with my college roommate that, I had lovely friends that liked to tease me for believing in the alien stuff, and she was the worst. And only to have her totally be on my side because she was seeing these things too, and this more positive alien being essentially disclosed what the shadow people were and how they had gone to other places, other planets, and dominated. And essentially, people wonder how the different alien beings are connected. And is it the Greys, the reptilians, the praying mantis, the more negative beings, and the shadow people are the ones that essentially connect them. Just as an example, once I was able to get rid of those gray beings that had come into my apartment, they realized they couldn't put that lovely paralyzing whammy on me that they usually do to other people, and they sent their boss in after me, essentially. That's what was told to me by this other being. And the shadow beings, what they do is they take down different races, different beings, and how can I say? It's like they absorb them and end up controlling them. And, the Greys, the reptilians, fell prey to them. They're a dominated race. And so this is the connecting force, is the shadow people. And being able to, they take on various shapes and forms. So they're able to essentially pull their strings.
That's incredible. And have you looked further into the interaction with all of this? Because, definitely there might be a connection to you yourself being an abductee.
Have I looked into it myself as to what my connection is?
Yes.
Is that, well, I'm not an abductee, believe it or not. They weren't able to get me. They tried, but it didn't happen, thank God. And actually, literally, thank God, because the connection I soon found out with myself was more with more positive alien beings, I guess you could say, almost an angelic type of presence. And I mean, to have a group of alien beings that talk about God and, you better pray more. I mean, I was just stunned, to have, these things that I'd never looked into. I'd heard of the Greys. I saw that they were the ones that did rotten things to people, and then to see that there are a whole slew of alien beings out there that essentially they have this not interfere type of policy, like not to get involved in changing the way things go on a planet. But when they saw that these shadow beings were moving in onto this planet, bringing their Greys and all those other alien beings attacking and abducting people and essentially changing, they're violating, I guess, this rule of not to get involved. That's when they decided to start planting seeds and to come to people and say how to protect yourself against these more negative beings. So,
and I kind of have a question that I don't know if you've ever been asked before. When you were sort of scuffling with these beings, did you get a chance to feel them physically? Were they like plush or solid? And did you get a chance to touch the texture of their skin at all?
Are you speaking of any of the alien beings?
Yeah. Well, especially the Greys when they were going through your stuff.
You know what? I didn't. I think I remember kind of bumping one of their hands when I grabbed, the stuff out of their hands and put it down, and it was kind of cold and it felt much like clay, And the one that I picked up and rattled, he had suspenders on, but he also had like a shirt underneath the suspender part. So, so I didn't get to touch the skin on that one, but. Another type of reptilian being, he had very soft type of skin, I guess you could say, but it wasn't like I gave him a hug or anything. I remember touching his arm or something. So yeah, he had rather soft skin. But
and did they ever comment on what they thought of humans, any of these beings or species?
Actually, the more positive beings, they do have a sense of humor, actually, in observing, I guess, what it is that we do down here. From what myself and college roommate had experience and some of the contact that we had with this one being, and we didn't go we weren't abducted or anything like that. He was just like, if you want to talk to me, just let me know, type of thing. So it was really different, but. They found it interesting, how humans in general thought of the idea, like when you hear music, to gyrate your body to it. They just couldn't understand that. They thought it was the funniest thing. It's like to move your body to music. It's like, who came up with that? So I was like, that's...
It's totally alien to the aliens.
Yeah, exactly. And they thought, one being thought the neatest thing they would love to try, but there were too many germs in it, was ice cream, just to have some cool and smooth melting in their mouth. They thought it would be neat to try, but so I don't know. There was a couple of odd things, odd observations, and they thought that the noises that people could make from their mouths was very distracting because they spoke telepathically and sound was really odd to them. But I don't know. But you know what? There was one thing that I thought was really peculiar about them. They like to collect smells, really foul smells. So that's one of them for being strange. So they would literally have almost as if like a trading card, like a flask of smells. So. But I don't know. Really strange stuff.
That could be maybe their home planets, or planets could be methane-based. And, as methane does have a peculiar smell, so possibly, it reminds them of home.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, it's so strange. It's like, I don't get the opportunity to talk about aliens so much as the shadow people, Hat Man, and the Jesus anymore. So it's kind of neat to talk about the alien stuff.
Well, we'll definitely cross over because that there are a million questions I'm sure you've already had regarding the shadow people. But here's one I'm not sure if you have, and if you had, I'm sorry about this. But there's so many references to Bibles, UFOs in the Bible. But and has there been, to your knowledge or your research, any reference to shadow people in the Bible? Other than, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to say I'm nearly positive that the same demonic presences that were discussed in the Bible are indeed the shadow beings and certain alien beings, and what they do, how they smell, how they act, and what they feed upon, and how they take great pleasure in causing pain and havoc in people's lives. And it's very much a scenario of an angel and a devil sitting on a shoulder each trying to influence you. And it sounds ridiculous. I always thought, well, that's so silly, and what a cop-out to blame it on the devil. He made me do it, But they help encourage these urges, and if they can't get at you physically, they'll try to feed off from you in your dreams and cause you to have nightmares where your fear levels are so high, and they'll feed off from that and try to encourage you to think one way over another. It's amazing the way that they get at people, and it's so sad though too, because so many people feel so alone, and they're like, how is it I've seen only these things only in my dreams, and I flip to your website, Heidi, and I see your drawings of these exact beings, and I'm like, that's because they're one and the same. So.
And why do you think they are mostly described wearing that, peculiar cloak and hat? Do you think that that's possibly a uniform that they may be wearing that does cloak them from normal light, let's say?
Are you speaking of the Hat Man?
Yes, that's right.
I'll tell you just a little bit about him, because first, when I wrote the book about the shadow people called The Secret War, I had never heard of the shadow people before. I came up with the name. Who knew that would stick? Now, when it came to the Hat Man, I also had made that name up, put it on my website, didn't think that would stick either, but I had one time call him a Hat Man Shadow, because I thought that he was a shadow being. I had not experienced him personally. My college roommate that I mentioned had, and I just thought, wow, these shadow people can really take on some freaky forms. This is a really solid one. And so I had addressed it as that originally. Well, I was wrong. He is not a shadow person. He is something much worse. And his outfit, why he chooses to wear what he does, I couldn't tell you. But I think it's because he wants to be recognized, and he wants others to realize his presence is what it is. And to go in a little more detail about the Hat Man, I put that drawing up on my website, and it's still there, of a man in a three-piece suit, oftentimes seen with a goatee, sometimes not. Sometimes a chained watch on his hip is seen. Sometimes with what looks like a cape or a trench coat is also seen. And he's known to wear a top hat, fedora hat, or a gaucho-like hat, like Zorro. And sometimes his eyes are solid black, all white, or red. And to say that he's misty or anything, no, he's very solid. He'll appear in people's dreams, their bedrooms, wherever. And I started getting letters, a few trickled in here and there in the beginning. And And they started saying, I've seen him too. I've seen the same guy, and da-da-da. And it started coming in from all over the world. It's funny because my website started off as a UFO site for aliens, and then I made a separate one for the shadow people. And now, out of all the things that are on my websites, more and more people are speaking of the Hat Man in general. And when people write me to ask me questions about him, they ask me, who is he, and they always seem to answer their own question, and they're like, he's the devil, isn't he? Because that's what I felt. It was the devil. And the stories are they're terrifying, but you know what? He's not acting so much just yet.
Right.
But
is there any chance that he could be Jack the Ripper?
Jack the Ripper. I think he is. I'm going off from what the letters that I've been getting about him, and he is so much darker than that. He is so much more vengeful, and the feelings that he emits from people. I guess just to tell you a couple of stories that I've received. I had one gentleman that wrote me to tell me that he introduced himself as Scratch. Now, that's an Old Norse term for Old Scratch, for the devil.
Yes.
I had another person that attempted to kill themselves. And when they woke up in the hospital bed, they looked to the chair that was next to them, and he was sitting there, and he told them, and raised his fingers up, and he's like, I was this close to having you, and disappeared.
Wow.
So you tell me who he is.
Yeah. The Reaper, the devil, your choice.
Yeah.
Well, I have somebody in the chat room that wants to know if you would be willing to take some questions.
Oh, yeah, I'd love it.
Okay, so I'll bring them in now, and that way they can go ahead and ask their question.
Sounds good.
Hello, hi, you're live on Paranormal Guys Inc. Radio with Heidi Hollis. You have a question?
Oh, am I on?
Yes, you are.
I was just going to ask the nice lady, in your encounters or getting reports from other people, have you ever heard of a six-fingered, six-toed off-worlder or alien?
Actually, yeah, I have had reports come in about such a creature.
Before you go on, did they look human?
This one, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember the one that I'd heard of. I want to say it was a report given to me, somebody out of the UK, and it was rather bald, small-eyed looking alien, but for the most part had human features.
Okay. Does it give a description on the height or anything?
A description on the what? I'm sorry.
How tall?
Oh, I cannot remember. I get so many reports. I cannot recall. I'm sorry. Have you experienced something like that?
Briefly.
Okay.
I had an encounter with what I would describe, I say encounter, it wasn't really that either. I had telepathy or mind speak with a being that looked basically Native American and had 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Oh, okay. Okay.
That was the definitive thing about him that I could see when I was able to scan him, because we had brief contact with each other. I would say he was probably about 7 feet tall, had jet black hair, and the dark reddish tan skin that Native Americans do.
Oh, that's interesting. Did he seem like a more positive being? Was he teaching you about something or talking to you about something?
Well, the whole encounter or thing was prefaced by mind speak that I had with what people tend to call the Greys. And this Grey was telling me, I don't know why your people think we're dangerous. We're not malevolent. We're benevolent. We mean no harm to your race. We're your friends. And I said, I said in my communication, I said, it usually sets off alarm bells with me when somebody is trying to convince me that they're good.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
That's when this voice came in and said, I'm breaking off your communication. And I said, do tell why. And he said, because you've attracted something to yourself that you don't need in your life. I said, okay. And he said, that means that your mind speak will not work for a time. I'm turning your brain off.
Wow.
I said, okay, I can accept that if there's an exchange here. And he said, what do you want? I said, I'd like to be able to scan you and see what you look like. And that's when I was able to scan him and see that he was about 7 feet tall, maybe a little taller. He had dark reddish tan skin and jet black hair like a Native American. But he was wearing some kind of white jumpsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, the most distinguishing feature to me is that he had 6 fingers and 6 toes.
Oh wow, that's cool. Wow.
So he turned my brain off, and everything I'd learned how to do for 20 years didn't work anymore. And it came on about a month or so later, and I had to basically relearn everything that I'd known for the last 20 years or so.
Wow.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. Wow. Thanks for sharing your story. That's awesome.
Well, that was just a very interesting experience. You were talking about Jesus Christ and what people call God, the one creator, the I am, whatever you'd like to call him.
Mm-hmm.
I've had brief communications with him in my brain, my mind, and one day he suggested something to me, and I don't even remember what it was now, but I was standing in my driveway, and I thought, that's crazy to even suggest that to me. And furthermore, I would like to say that I think you're crazy for even suggesting that to me. You're crazy. And there was a pause, and I heard in my mind, I'm not the one hearing voices in my head. That's a great response. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Well, I thank you for your call. And if you have any recollection further of your experience, definitely send it to Heidi Hollis, and she can correspond back and forth with you in more detail if you like.
Oh, thank you for taking my call.
Yeah, definitely.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, I have a website, alienadvice.com, and a YouTube channel that's /Heidi Hollis that you can see some of the answers that I give to some of the people that ask for advice about their experiences. So.
And people also can contact you via Facebook as well if they so wish to desire to use that platform. And we'll give all your websites out at the end of the show. But back on to shadow people, because you just gave a great description of the man with the hat, And, shadow people, have you come across any true stories of, like, absolute injury? Because I've come across articles myself where people get scratched or poked or something like that, but it's still hard to prove, and you can't make it valid or validate the story beyond that. But yourself personally, have you come across anything?
People that have literally had fist fights with shadow beings. Yes. I had a gentleman that told me how he literally rumbled and tussled on the floor and got slammed up against the wall, and he slammed the thing back. And I don't think he badly injured himself, but I think it really scared the crap out of him. But it was interesting to hear of, and it seems more that their goal isn't to try to hurt people physically. It's more or less to get them to submit to them. What they want is the power. And what did our early colonists? What did they want? They wanted the land. They wanted to take over. And one thing that's important to note when it comes to the Greys, the shadow beings, it's like the whole of them. Their number one objective with the Greys, they're creating these half human, half alien hybrids, and that's what the whole phenomena with the abductee phenomena that's going on, what's happening. And, people are like, well, why are they doing this? They say, oh, our species is dying. They're trying to help us. And, oh, their species is dying. They're helping themselves. And think about it. Their bodies are not made for this planet, but ours are. And they essentially would like to create something that can live upon this planet and that they could control. They're building an army. They want the land. They've come here for the land. The resources, they don't need the resources. They don't need our technology. They want the land. They want the strength of the beings that live here behind them. And they're here to absorb. And, it kills me a little bit every day when I get these stories from all over the world of people's encounters of all sorts of kinds. And they're not believed. They can't turn to the person next to them to share their experience. And I'm like, well, how perfect of a setup that these goofy little looking aliens are coming down, or these creepy, dark, shadowy beings are creeping about, and their victims get laughed at. So they're not believed. They don't aim to try to get the proper help that way because they're like, oh, I'm going to be laughed at. This is going to be seen as a big joke. And I'm like, they're masquerading as a joke. If you said the word demon back in the day of the Bible, people acted. Today, they're just roaming freely. They are roaming freely, and most people laugh about it, and it kills me.
That's right, and you have a very good point. For example, if you say that I've encountered an angel, people smile, they embrace it, they welcome it. But if you said I was abducted by aliens and had experiments, you'd be locked up or laughed at. You're absolutely right.
It's I don't know. The letters I get them from doctors, lawyers, politicians, and I think some of the stars out there too, movie stars, under a guise like I'm very popular, I can't tell you who I am. I'm like, whatever, I'm just here to try to help you. I'm not doing this for any other reason. I think something has to be done. I think that we need to take a stand and, stop with the BS of, ripping people down for their experiences. And, so many of the shows out there, they're out, to do the scientific, get the scientific proof, to show that these people's word is the truth, because we got the science. And it's like, I'm all about the people. I've got a degree in science, but I don't have a scientific approach because I think sometimes we have to take the word of people as the truth. And when millions of people all over the world are saying the same thing, I think that's enough proof right there, And no, it's not going to kill us to hear it. It's not going to kill us to hear about what these people are experiencing, but it might kill us in the end if we don't take heed of their warning.
That's right. And do you feel that there's an area that's untapped, whether it be music or cultures or, certain particular areas of the earth that have not been exposed to any of this, or if they have, they're just still so afraid to speak of it that, could be embraced in a different way?
I think in general, all over the world, I think there's pockets of people that will never be open to any of this stuff. I think that's going to always be a problem. It's just like we can't have a one world religion. People have different views. That's just how it is, and that's what makes us unique. So.
And what about ageism? Because I know you're doing some work with teenagers, and people have a hard time, either understanding them or even trusting them. And what you're doing is absolutely great because it gives them a place or at least an outlet to discuss their experiences without feeling like, there's a finger pointed in their face or they're going to be laughed at. And is that the reason that you created that or started to do that as well?
Started to do the YouTube channel to reach out, the alienadvice.com site. I started doing that to help anybody and everybody. The thing with the kids, I get a lot of kids that write me, and it's so cute and then kind of scary at the same time. These kids will usually start off, "Hi, Heidi. My name is," they give their first, last name, and age, and about where they live. I'm like, oh, my God, kids, where are your parents? And then they're like, "My mom doesn't believe me. This is going on." And I'm like, oh gosh, I've been there. I've seen the spooky stuff and had my parents not believe me, and it's like it makes you angry and whatnot. Thank God my parents did not send me to any kind of counseling for it. But a lot of these kids, when they share what they've experienced, they get sent to counseling, and I'm like, it's awesome that your parents heard you. They don't know how to relate. They can't help that, but they're going to try to help by giving you some kind of outlet. And I'm like, hey, go to the counseling and say, by the way, school sucks too, and just, vent it all. You got the opportunity. At least your parents love you. They're making an effort. And, you can't blame them for not being able to relate. It's because society does not put it out there for people to be generally educated about all this stuff. So I hope to just help a little bit in helping people understand some of it. And just keeping it real, not trying to talk about over people's heads or anything, but just be who I am, expose, yeah, okay, I seen aliens, I told you. Okay, now you hear it. And, yeah, I saw Jesus too. And you're like, oh, come on, And it's like all I could do is be honest, truthful, live a sane life. And, I work as an occupational therapist. And, like you're a therapist and it's like, I'm out there and I'm putting word out there as much as I can, but I don't sit there and preach about it all day. If somebody asks me a question, I'll try my best to answer it, but I don't cram it down anybody's throat, and I try to keep humor in it. I think when we keep that, stressed look on our face when we're talking about this stuff, that we spook people out, and we could clear a whole room if we wanted to. We gotta relate. We gotta relate as we are. Treat it like any other subject.
And I know you got a bunch of brand new things that you're working on as well. Is it mostly books, or are you ever going to put a DVD series together?
Oh gosh, I would love to do that. That might be a possibility. There have been some people that have asked me to do different things. I did do a pilot series for Discovery Channel at one time, and mysteriously that had an issue and kind of went away. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing a lot of writing. I'm writing 4 books right now at the same time. I'm a lot of shows. I try to speak at as many places as I can, and and maybe one day do another radio show. I did do a couple of those, but I try to do as much as I can and put up the YouTube videos and maintain my sites and all that good stuff. So it's I feel like sometimes I feel a little spread thin because I'm just one person, but I love it. I wouldn't want to do anything else than what I am doing, and just to continue and hopefully put word out there. So I don't know. One thing that I wanted to touch on too, all this, the negative stuff is interesting and all too, as far as, Hat Man, shadow people, negative aliens, but I think we got to create a balance with more of the positive things that are going on out there. The positive alien beings, like the gentleman that came and asked and spoke of his Native American looking aliens that he spoke to. There are a slew of aliens out there that do not get airtime because, that's just too far-fetched. There aren't enough reports of this 6-fingered one, but they're out there. And they're speaking, they're sharing, they're trying to help. And they essentially, why I called my book The Secret War, is because there is a war going on. There's a war between the negative and the positive, and I think this may be the war of all wars. And when it comes to the Hat Man showing up all over the world in all different societies and cultures, I mean, breaks my heart with what they're experiencing, and they feel so alone. But know this, the experiences of Jesus encounters all over the world is up like 400% or something ridiculous like that. Mm-hmm. It is, he's showing up to he's showing up to people that seem more closely associated to his goals, as well as this Hat Man seems to be showing up to people that may be more associated with his goals. And it doesn't mean that we are, people like, because I saw him, you're saying I'm screwed, my soul is dark. I'm like, no, it's just like nobody feels, like they're worthy of having Jesus visit them. I think that we all just need to be aware that there's something going on, and we have to look more into the light and be more positive.
That's absolutely great way to look at it. And is that going to be the premise of any of the books that you are working on?
Actually, yeah. I think in all of the things that I'm putting together, that I'm kind of gearing it to, get people to look towards the more positive things in that regard and acknowledge some of these more negative things that are happening. But yeah.
And I'm sure you've been asked this. It's such a current question, probably a billion times. What's your view on the whole 2012 thing? Do you believe that that's going to be the pinnacle of what you're describing? Good versus evil, dark versus light, awakened versus dead.
Even with the alien beings that myself and my friends had experienced, the more positive ones, it was like, oh, tell us the lottery, what's going on? And it's like they always said, some things are destined to happen, but when they're meant to happen, even they couldn't tell. They couldn't see it. But, some things are destined to happen. I can't say that, so many dates get put out there so specific, and they come and they go, and, nothing happened. So I really don't know what to say as far as the 2012 thing goes. It could be, but to say with certainty that that's when things are going to come to an end or change, I really couldn't tell you, but I could tell you something is brewing, and wow, desperate times calls for desperate measures, and the shadow beings are being seen so much more because they're desperate. The Hat Man, he's desperate. Jesus, he's coming, he's looking at people, and he's arousing them. What's going on? I think that we all have to be aware and keep on our toes.
And how do you feel overall? Do you feel overwhelmed? You mentioned that you're spread thin, but do you feel that, what would be a point that you would get to where you would say, I need a bit of a moment for myself? Or have you reached that at any point?
Yeah, actually, I've known many people that are involved in the same kind of thing that I am, and, you just have to take a step back, take some time off, not do any writing. At one time I was doing so many radio shows, and that's about when you had first contacted me, believe it or not. And I had gotten a little burnt out. I'm like, oh God, I just every night of the week I had a full-time job, So, yeah, you have to take a step back, get back to your roots, enjoy the sunshine instead of sitting at your computer updating your websites and writing books. So, I've had to pull back and come forward and pull back again, but still, it's such a passion and it's such a love that I feel honored and fortunate to be able to be working on these topics. So.
And do you have any particular events or speaking engagements that are coming up in the next little while for yourself?
Yeah, actually, I put all of my events on HeidiHollis.com, so on the events page. So I have them all listed there, and to say I can rattle them off easily, I'd be lying. I have a terrible memory for things like that. But, I always keep it up there, and HeidiHollis.com is my main website. It links to my Shadow People site, my UFO site, my Jesus site, and my newest book called PicturePrayers.com. It's also linked to that.
Okay, and let's speak about that book for a few moments, if we can, because for those that are not familiar with it, can you give a sense of the site?
Yeah, actually, I believe it or not, I was at a UFO conference when I had all I can describe as being an angelic encounter, and that literally taught me a different way of praying. I'd always had, such a difficult time, and I kind of resented praying. It was just like this boring thing I had to do that I literally fell asleep in the middle of. So this encounter taught essentially how the angels communicate with God through visuals, and it's one of those things. I'm not a person to sit on my hands and not try to share something, so I put it together and like in my book Picture Prayers and put it out there and hope it helps people. So, and it really I tell people there's no excuse for not praying more, because it takes no time to do this, and it comes more naturally. And honestly, I think it's a connection to help us one day come to the realization that we can communicate telepathically. That's been my experience ever since I started practicing picture prayers. So something very different.
Phenomenal. And I know you mentioned you're from Milwaukee. Are you a Bucks fan?
I'm really not into many sports, but of course I support my Milwaukee team. So, but I admit
the only reason why I mentioned it is because Coach Carl is, going through some real tough times right now, and I'm sure the entire state of Wisconsin is praying for him to, have a speedy recovery.
For certain, yeah, that's for sure.
And I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned, this slipped my mind totally, but back when you were speaking of shadow people, you mentioned that you could see them through the corner of your eye. Is that the best way to pick out a shadow person, is through the corner of your eye, or are there other techniques that you can train yourself to see that visual?
You know why people are able to see them mostly from the corner of their vision is because our peripheral vision is actually more sensitive to the differences between lights and darks. So I think that's why people happen to catch them that way more clearly, but it's not always the case. I've seen them straight on. To say that there's a better way to feel their or sense their presence or see their presence, I think allowing ourselves to admit that we have those extra senses to be able to know that something is in the room that should not be there. And they generally do not like to be spotted, because if you can see your enemy, you can defend yourself. They don't want that. And if you're able to see them, that's when they usually do like to attack a person. One of their favorite pastime things to do is jump on a person's chest and choke them. So it's lovely of them, but yeah.
Yeah, very nice. And can you actually summon them in the same sort of way that you can call on, an angel or Jesus? I suspect there would be dark persons out there that would have that ability, but have you come across a story like that?
Oh, God, yes. People that have mistakenly opened themselves to those things, yeah, or purposefully, that we're into dark magic type things, yeah. They are, I don't know of an invitation they haven't picked up on, honestly, seriously. And I tell people, if they're really in your life and they're really causing havoc, there's something that took place at some point where you allowed them in, and people are like, why would I allow such a thing like that? And I'm like, well, imagine this. These guys don't play by any rule. They're very much like a vampire. They have to be invited. So imagine that you had a dream and you think you see your sister at the door, and you got the sense in you that it's not your sister, but you open up the door anyways, and lo and behold, it's one of them, and you've let them in. So this is how they get into people's lives. This is how they infiltrate and wreak the havoc that they want. You have to essentially close the door, and whether you remember exactly what happened or not, you have to find that in you and have no doubt in you that you can close that door, whether it's shadow people, demonic things, aliens, whatever is in your life that is not positive. Trust me, you can get rid of them. I did. So.
Excellent point. And one final question: has there ever been a letter or a case that has been sent to you of, say, a shadow person and an angel having a fight right in front of the experiencer?
Actually, that letter was my own life. Yeah. Yeah, I actually, when I first started having them, after all those 9 alien beings left and I had the shadow thing showing up, these spheres of light would essentially attack them and send them on their way. And I'm like, what am I seeing here? It was like a mini battle going on. And, and I had friends that would come over and stay over just to see what they could see. And they're like, what was that? And I'm like, I don't know. This is what's going on. And that's why I had to write that book, The Secret War, because, there's a battle going on, and other people have seen it. It wasn't just myself, and yes, I have received letters of people too. So that's why I say thank God, because He's who protected me. There is no other person or thing that could have done what happened to protect me from these shadow demonic things that I had no idea what they were, and then to get the answers that I did. I think anything positive is on the side of God, so I attribute anything and all the progress that I have is to Him. So, and even having the nerve to be on a radio show or speak at a conference, I had a terrible stage fright. I never ever would speak, and in my first encounter with Jesus, He told me, "Don't worry what others think. That I'll be there to give you the words." And who knew that this UFO chick that wrote about these shadow people, that it was Jesus behind her that got her through the whole while. So the skeptic of Jesus encounters.
Well, I know, and it's so funny how everything comes full circle, and it happens for a reason, and that's a definite fact.
Right. That's so true. So very true.
Let me ask you, I do have one more question. I just don't want to end this conversation. It's been absolute phenomenal thing, and is there anything, because you've experienced so much in your own life, is there anything that shocks you at this point or could shock you out there?
As far as paranormal things that I've heard about, I think some of these creature reports, as far as lake monsters, there have been reports that have been sent in to myself, and I've met people that have seen lake monsters in a couple of lakes in Wisconsin even alone. And, I'll tell you, something that one of the contacts that myself and my college roommate had with this more positive being said, these creatures in these different lakes all over the world are what are described as the beast in the Bible. These things will rise up in the last days. And I'm like, what? So I think that's what's really kind of freaky, and to think that something like that is swimming around in so many different lakes all over the world, and what are they? What are they doing? When are they going to rise up? That's very, very scary.
That's a very good point. And let me ask you, just sorry for that. But
no, I mind one bit.
Flash forward, let's say 50 years from now, and you're looking back at everything that you've written about and have experienced and accomplished.
Mm-hmm.
Would you change anything at all if you had that power?
I wish that I had found and currently found better routes to get the message out there. I keep thinking every day, is there more that I can do? Is there more that I can do? What more can I do? And I keep searching and searching. So if anybody out there has ideas too, it's like I'm game. And I think that just being a little bit more resourceful and spreading the word about these odd things that are going on and trying to find more solutions sooner than later. I think that's the one thing I wish I could change now, and I'm sure I'll be thinking about that in the future. Like, what more can I do? What more can I do? So,
well, in my opinion, what you're doing is phenomenal, and you've accomplished so much to this point already. There's just unlimited amounts that you can do, and I really have to say that it's been an absolute honor to speak to you. And we did run over time, and I appreciate that you're hanging on here. And I would welcome you back anytime, at any time, in the future, if you would love to come back as a guest.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I promise I won't take as long to get back to you to do it, too.
No problem. And I appreciate, being patient with me as well, because it's been a learning process for myself, from day one till now. And I really hope that the questions were interesting and you enjoyed yourself as much as I did.
Oh, this was a blast. I mean, I really appreciate being on. It was an absolute honor. Thanks for having me. I really, really, really mean that.
Thank you so much, Heidi, and you have yourself a great night. And again, can you give out your website and your email one last time for the people out there?
Sure. People can go to all of my websites at HeidiHollis.com. That's HeidiHollis.com. And that connects to my alien advice site and all that good stuff and Shadow People site. And people can write me at Heidi.Hollis@gmail.com. So I have a lot of .com, so enjoy.
Awesome. And as soon as you're ready to, drop your books whenever they're released, please feel free to post them in my group, and I will definitely get the word out there for you as well.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Thanks.
No problem. Thanks again so much for being a part of the show, and have yourself a great night.
You too. Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Everybody, that was Heidi Hollis. What an incredible guest. Very open, very candid, and just a true pleasure to speak to. And I hope you all enjoyed it as much as I did. The conversation was absolutely, mind-opening from one topic to the next. And I welcome her back at any time, like I said. But I also welcome everyone out there to join me for the next show, which will be on May 1st at 10 p.m. with iCar co-founder Joel Montaldo. And again, that's May 1st, 2010 at 10 p.m. And if you get a chance, please visit my website, www.paranormalguysinc.tk. It's a new version of the same website. It's shorter, easier to get to. Paranormal Guys is spelled PAIRANORMALGUYSINC .T as in Tom, K as in karate. So everyone out there, have yourself a great night. Thanks for